Good afternoon, my friends. Brian with VetteSource here this weekend, the weekend before Thanksgiving, where we're going to be working in the garage. And we're going to take a little time this week. We're switching our C4 content up just a little bit to focus on Thor, the 427 trainer here, as I affectionately call it, where we're going to talk a little bit more about the short video I put out the other day, if you guys hadn't seen that, where I was discussing bouncing your face into this, which is what you really won't want to do. But this kind of follows in the vein of some of the videos I've been doing lately regarding the build characteristics, the build quality, the build procedural differences and material differences that they're going with for a lot of the new cars. Now, let's go back to, obviously, for those that don't know and haven't watched me before, this is a 67 Corvette with the 427 engine, which is quite powerful, quite destructive on the roads, if you will, and it requires you to actually drive it. Now, the one thing different about these versus the newer cars you're going to see is how they're constructed, how they're put together. In this case, this car here is probably the tail end. You could calculate the early 70s as some of the same type of designs, but this kind of is the tail end for me, at least, in what I like to see in a car as the classic style, right? The mid-century, the Art Deco, which started back in the late 30s, if I remember correctly, in cars, maybe mid-30s, into the 40s, and then, of course, post-war and during Vietnam, the styles of cars, heck, the style of music, the style of even some of the fashion, I think is still going to be everlasting. It's going to be a timeless design, and people are going to keep going back to it. Otherwise, I think we're still going to have classic rock stations everywhere, and people are still going to chase mid-century furniture and all kinds of things, and even mid-century cars. So here's the thing about these, right? If you take a closer look inside of here, as I crunch something in my back pocket, those are my tools. Just want to make sure I don't mess up my seat in this car, guys. Hang on. So, as you climb into this car, you are aware of immediately, not only are you pretty much ensconced in metal trim everywhere. I mean, it's everywhere. Metal, metal, metal. On a fiberglass car, mind you. Metal, 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 metal. Dash pads actually are vinyl. This is a plastic. This is fiberglass and metal mixed, combination. Not only is everything metal, even the center console, shifter, all that, but there are also lots of other things absentee, even the mirror, metal, from a new car, such as shoulder harnesses, which some Corvettes did come with them, but they were not a standard feature. So we just have good old-fashioned lap belts. We don't have airbags in this car. We don't have a collapsible steering column. I think that was in 69. I may be wrong on that one, guys. Maybe the 67 got it, but I don't think it did. Non-collapsible steering column. There are plenty of things inside this car to basically emulate being inside a pinball machine if you get into a crash with it, that frankly has a high probability of causing death, if not serious injury, even with the lap belt on, because with the lap belt, you're going to crash straight into this steering wheel, regardless, right? So I don't say that as a detraction. I just say that even though I've discussed some of the nanny features that have come up with new cars over the years, be honest with you, it's made it a lot safer for a lot of people, because I will tell you guys from experience, and a lot of you never even actually heard a 427 Corvette or any big block car from that era. These are not cars that are meant for the inexperienced driver. In fact, my wife has never even driven this car, because you have to drive this, and if you don't, it'll drive you into the ditch on its own. So it's a really neat design, though. In fact, I think of all the dash designs on the Corvettes, I do like the 84 through 89, the Atari dash, which I've done a video on that one before. I just like the coolness factor of that, because being a child of the 80s and video games and such, that was a cool thing to come out with. But this is really a neat design. It's plain and simple, clean and simple and tight. You got fuel, you got battery, speedo, tack. Of course, there's our 6,500 RPM tack, which in Corvette world lets you know that if it hasn't been changed or faked or cloned, which a lot of them have, this is what denotes that you have one of the badass Corvettes, the 427 with a solid lift cam, square port heads, and most likely it's going to be a tri-power car. Now, some of the small block cars did have that 65, but those were the LT1 cars, the high horse, like the fuel injection cars and such. And of course, water temperature, and we've got our battery right here. No, I'm sorry, oil pressure. I'm sorry, I was looking backwards. But you can see, just a straight. And what's really funny, for those of you that are not old enough to remember, see if I can get that to focus in, these Corvettes and cars of this era, I think it was all the cars, actually came with a Briggs & Stratton key. I'm really confused because I wasn't around in that era, if that was just standard procedure or if this may have been replacement. But I've seen so many of these cars with a Briggs & Stratton, I don't recall them having a GM key like a 68 or a 69, I should say, where it went to the column. But anyway, maybe somebody can fill me in that was around during that time frame, because I seem to think maybe they were all the same. But you can see everything's pretty straight up. Lights are here. You actually had a wiper switch here. And for goodness sake, you even had your lighter here, right? So, I don't even think they include those on cars anymore. I don't know. Haven't driven a new car in a little while. So anyway, beautiful dash, but here's where we come into what I was talking about in the short, okay? You don't want to bounce into this dash. And I'll give you our example. We're going to do a little comparison here today so I can show you what we're talking about. Okay, so we come over here and we've got our 67 Corvette dash. This is an extra dash that I picked up because if you have a mid-year, you know that you need extra parts. Just comes with the territory. And here is a dash from 2006 Corvette, which, if you look at it, the things are very, very similar in design, but totally different in the way they're constructed. Now, the interesting thing, of course, obviously you've got water temperature, oil pressure on this side, tach, speedometer, you've got fuel gauge, and then battery voltage here. Now in this one we've got water temperature, oil, tachometer, speedometer, fuel, and then of course battery. Now this is different. This is an amperage gauge, not a volt gauge. So this actually runs a live wire back to the back of the dash, and this is actually the cause of a lot of fires in cars if you're not careful with this. So I won't go into that today. It's a little more advanced subject matter, but I will show you that in addition, you can see this is not only a smaller cluster, it's made out of plastic. Right? Everything about this is plastic, okay? It's designed to be a breakaway device. It's very, very lightweight plastic. In fact, if I took a punch, I could probably just punch a screwdriver right through the top of this pretty quickly. And the plastic front of it, okay, is very light duty. And honestly, again, not to disparage C6s because they're great cars, especially the mighty Z06, but these are probably the most boring interiors I've seen in Corvettes over the years. It was kind of very corporatized is the way I look at it, homogenized, if you will. But you can see I could literally take two fingers, pick this up. It's very easy to move around, okay? So let's put that to the side because we're not interested in that one. Or we're interested in this Goliath here. So if I try to do the same thing with this, I'm not picking that up. That's heavy. This thing weighs probably on the neighborhood of 12 to 15 pounds. It's heavy. Everything on this is metal, okay? This is a metal, everything construction. And I'll show you something interesting about these these gauge housings as well. Now, of course, here we've got fuel gauge on this side. We've got battery, again, amperage gauge. You've got your speedometer, your tachometer, 6500. That's the only reason I grabbed this dash because that was in such good shape. I may actually change mine out with this one because mine is a little bit faded from my car just from the years when it was a daily driver. Water temperature and oil gauge, and the backing plate's really nice. And of course your turn signals will go right there. Oh, wait a minute, those might be the telltales. Turn signals on either side, that's right, and wiper and everything else. So looking at the back of this unit, you can see everything here is cable driven on this, okay? So speedometer, tachometer, cable driven. There's your odometer right there. And of course there is your oil pressure line going in. You actually, on the old cars too, you actually had straight up an oil line going in here to give you the exact pressure. If this broke or came loose, then of course you had oil spewing all over the inside of the car. So yes, it was a different generation, guys. And of course, these are your electric leads for your other pieces that come in there. So very interesting, you know. And this was made by, pretty sure this is still Delco. My tag's missing, my service tag. Most of it's missing right there. But let's go ahead and take this apart a little bit so you can kind of see how easily this comes in and out together. It's a very simple design, not very complex. But again, beautifully functional. Very nice looking. These instruments just come straight out of there, and you can see they're just mounted right there. And of course, there's your telltales, right? Of course, we come over here to this one. And take. Now what you can see too is these kind of overlap. See how what they did on the center part of it there? That overlaps, and one screw covers both sides of it. So they were even learning how to be efficient back then. There we go. And then this one comes out. Of course, is our water temperature and our oil right there. You can see those are just, and truth be told, this has been gone through before. You can see that the oil temperature gauge is truly just a mechanical gauge. That's a spring-loaded resistance mechanism that, as it pushes, the oil pressure pushes against there, it translates that into a readout on the gauge, which I always found interesting that they figure that stuff out. There we go. And we'll get the big ones out of here. Now, I will say too is that the newer gauge sets, the clusters, come out of there very easy. These do not come out as easily because you can see how many individual connections you've got in here to take off the back before it really wants to come out. So, as we take this off, right, and then our mounting plate comes with it, okay, there's our gauge cluster right there. I'm not going to pull that too hard because I don't want it to come apart on me. Well, and my needle came off there. And the amazing thing about this, it actually has two different pieces here. That comes in there. And then right underneath there are lenses. Now, this is what I always thought was unique about the Corvettes, and I haven't seen this on too many other 60s cars. These lenses are glass. They're not plastic. I mean, so this is considerably a larger expense when you go in over 20,000 plus cars to manufacture to build in glass lens covers on these versus the plastics that so many other cars actually came up with during that time period. So it's pretty high quality, you know. And even with these removed, this is still a heavy piece. This is the bulk of the weight right here. So it's funny is that, like I said, it's easy to take apart. You can see I took this apart in about 5 minutes, but it's hard to get out of the car versus vice versa. That one is very easy to get out of the car. And then it's a little bit more tricky to take that apart. I'll probably do that in another video. So anyway, it just goes to show, like I said, guys, a lot of things have changed in, what do we have here? A gap of 40 something years, right? Between this dash cluster in this 67 and this dash cluster in the 2005, 2006 C6. But you can see how much they changed over the years, material science wise, you know, ease of operation size. Obviously there's part of that where the GM techs can get those apart quicker and get them out, because they don't even actually rebuild these at dealerships. They just send those out to an authorized rebuild facility and put them back in the car. Versus, you know, this old tank of a piece of a unit that you really don't want to get into as far as, like I said, a wreck or things of that nature. And that's what I mean. I will grumble about the way new things are built to be kind of disposable, right? It's kind of, to me, what's trended us in the direction of the the symptom of cars looking like a bunch of homogenized blobs rolling down the road. But I will say, safety perspective, they've made cars a lot more safety and practical for the people that, let's face it, just aren't drivers. Their car is a piece of utility that they go to get in and out of and go get them somewhere, and they're done with it. So I would say, if you have an interest, look at some of the cars of the 60s, look at their instrument clusters, look at how they're designed. I really like the Ford interiors from the 60s. I think they did a fabulous job on their stuff. In fact, the one car I really, really, really like is, God, what's the year? Is it the late 50s Chrysler 300 dash speedometer? That thing looks like it came from outer space. I think it's a 59, I think. But it looks like a globe and a dome. It's very, very cool, guys. I remember the first time I saw one at an auction years ago, I was blown away. In fact, I've been looking for one just to put on my shelf to have to look at. But they come up, they're very expensive when they come up for sale. So, you know, it's definitely beauty over, you know, form and function together. But the beauty part of it was really neat in these old cars. So let me know what you guys think. I'm going to wrap things up today. I've been talking for a little while. And just for fun, just as a trivia, if you made it all the way to the end, tell me what was different on the gauges of the C6 cluster versus the C2 cluster. Now, the C2 and the C6 both had exactly the same gauges, but if you watch to the end, tell me what was different on there in the comments below. We'll see who can get that first. And so everybody have a good week. Hopefully, if it's your Thanksgiving week, you're having a good restful week with families and not talking too much about things that are making everybody go crazy right now. And if you're out of the States in another country, hope you have a productive, healthy week. And I'll catch up with you guys next time. See you then.